Thanks for joining me this week on the show. You are in for such a treat. I am joined by fellow podcast host, Amy Behimer, the host of Autoimmune Health Secrets, and she's here to share a little about her personal journey as well as the way that she supports others who are navigating autoimmune issues. And I know she's got a lot of inspiration and gold nuggets for you to enjoy. So thanks for joining us this week. Settle in. It's time to flip the script on stress and learn how to thrive today and throughout your days. Join me for inspiration and interviews with folks who are shining their light in the world in the areas of positive mindset, health, and well-being. I'm your host, Susi Vine. Let's get happified. Welcome back. I am so happy to have you with me this week for a conversation that I know is going to be valuable for you. I'm joined by Dr. Amy Behimer, a pharmacist with lots of initials behind her name. We'll have her decode those for us in just a minute. Amy's a health coach who actually gets it because she's living it too. As the host of the Autoimmune Health Secrets podcast, she helps people cut through the noise and reduce overwhelm so they can follow through with simple, feel-good habits that make a real difference. She pours her energy into coaching inside her membership, where it's less about knowing more and more about applying what you learn in real life. As you can see, I think there's going to be some real value coming to you in this conversation today. So thank you, Amy, for making time to join me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And I'd love to hear a little bit. Please share with the audience how you came to be in this space. I love having people trained in Western medicine on the program, but I know that this is really a personal mission for you as well.
Yeah. You know, when I first got into the space of digging into functional medicine for myself, I found that the Western and the functional seemed to kind of be pitted against each other. I was like, whoa, this is not necessary. They can be used in synergy. And so I really like to model that as well. Because like you said, I'm a pharmacist for almost 20 years. I do choose to take a disease modifying medication that sometimes people like to hear that. Like, oh, you mean I can be considering treating myself holistically and naturally, and that can mean I can also say yes to some other things that can help. I have decided, yes, that's what that means. So let's get the best out of both worlds. But my redirection from just pharmacy into the world of functional medicine and coaching really came after my third autoimmune diagnosis, and I was only 27. So I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which at that time was absolutely a life quake. It felt like the bottom had been ripped out from underneath me. And so I learned pretty quickly that if I was going to have a healthy and happy life, I was going to have to rethink and redefine some things to ensure that it was something that wasn't outside of my control.
Thank you for that so much, because I think it's important for people to hear that and recognize that. I feel like in our society, people see two very distinct paths. And maybe that comes primarily from it being called, in many cases, many modalities are alternative medicine. I'm trying to bring complementary medicine into the lexicon. My mother was a nurse throughout her career, and so I have a deep respect of Western medicine. And I really think that, as I grew up being aware, the medical system as it exists has a lot of limitations. Their motivations are not our primary motivation, which is being healthy. And the body has extraordinary powers to stay healthy when we get things out of the way. There's so many influences that come in to be a detriment to that homeostasis that we're designed to find.
Fellow daughter of a couple nurses, so I'm here for that. It's nice to have a nurse in the family. I always say that because they're
Yes.
angels. But you are so right. And I think nothing is more evident of what we are saying than the fact of, even if you have a high amount of physician visits and lab draws and scans and infusions, let's say there's 10 to 20, we still have 300 plus days in a year that is where health is built. It's in the days between all of that. And so it's one of the reasons that I clung and still cling so hard to habits. When I talk about whether it's complementary, alternative, functional, I really mean lifestyle habits. I mean, what are the things that are in our control that we can worry about in all those days in between? And habits are just awesome because the scientist in me loves how research backed they are, loves how many experts there are out there studying them so that we can just draw from that wisdom. And then I just take it on as my job to make it extremely tangible so that the information doesn't just live on the page of Atomic Habits, but we can actually apply it in our real life. You're laughing, which means you probably have read it or own it, or like everybody else. Yes, I've never met someone who doesn't have it. They're like, this makes so much sense. Okay, let's use that power of that research to change our health and our happiness today.
Yes, I think that we are so lucky to be living in this time when research has come to this place where we're looking at the science of habits, where we're looking at the science of positive psychology too,
Mhm.
where we're looking at ways to help improve our quality of life instead of just looking for ways to fix what's broken, right? We're not inherently broken. However, we're all on a journey of evolution and development. And so these tools that can help us up level ourselves and reclaim our health are so valuable. I think I'm not sure where it might be behind me, but I know Atomic Habits is on that shelf back
Me
there.
too. Me too. Yes.
Lots of posted flags sticking
Yeah.
out of the book.
And on paper, if you or if any of your listeners, if you're thinking about it on paper, in a conventional medicine textbook, if you look, I've even given presentations about multiple sclerosis in my pharmacy days. The words used to describe it are progressive, degenerative, neuro, disabling, all of these words that are heavy and they paint a certain picture. And I saw this definition of health early on that it was the absence of symptoms or disease. And I'm like, who made that up all those years ago? And if I'm saying I want to be healthy, I'm going to have to ditch that definition. And especially if I'm saying I want to help someone else be healthy, we have to stand in integrity and rewrite a definition for ourselves. So, what bubbled up through the years was what now I can clearly say is my definition of autoimmune health. And it kind of takes back the power a little bit from the word autoimmune because so many of us fill in the blank of autoimmune with disease. But there is a whole lot of health still happening with this diagnosis. And the part that I want to focus on always is the health that I can create, again, using these habits and these days in between. Now that I got this diagnosis, that I know for me, I never would have slowed down, woken up, and made these intentional choices. So I'm creating a whole lot of health on the other side of the diagnosis.
I really love that. And I do believe that words inherently have power, and our own definition of those words is really where the power lies, whatever the etymology might be. And so thank you for that. I think that we get to aim a lot higher than simply the absence of symptoms or disease. So
Mm.
cheers to that. And could you share a little bit too? Because I know so many people right now are struggling with the diagnosis of autoimmune, fill in the blank, disease, disorder, dysfunction. And I think with your professional experience, maybe once you got over the initial shock of it, you could find a different perspective than many people might first hearing that kind of diagnosis. But how did you come around to grappling with it and deciding how you were going to move forward with it?
I like to give credit where credit is due, and I'll tell you what I could do by myself, and I'll tell you where I got support. And the part I could do by myself was change to the quote unquote healthy, perfect habits. I could eliminate sugar. I could eat the best quality protein. I mean, I tried and experimented with every single type of food in terms of this is what creates a healthy body and doesn't lead to inflammation and all that. Exercise. I was, now looking back, compulsively exercising to prove I could do it, moving the body, probably causing stress. We can kind of now see how you borrow from one area to pay for another. But stepping up and doing what a textbook says is good, healthy habits for a body, I could do that on my own. What I couldn't do on my own, and what was a huge shift, was the first time that I had a mindset coach who was listening to me report the news. Well, yeah, life is not going to be as great with this disease. And she lovingly offered, that's not a truth. That is a thought that is optional. And for anyone hearing that, that can be a little bit confronting because it's like, no, it's very real. This is chronic. This is progressive. I've lost my ability to do this. There's a lot of real loss in facts, but it's not the whole truth. And so just being able to admit I was willing to find the things that could still be good, admit that I was willing to believe that my thoughts about it would influence how it plays out in my life and the experience I have with it. Again, the shift for me was pairing the healthier, what I call outer habits, but really learning that there are inner habits, that our bodies are comfortable thinking and feeling certain ways, and really being willing to challenge that and say, I'm not saying it's okay that I got this diagnosis, or I'm not saying that to jump and say, I'm so grateful, that can turn anybody off. But I was willing to find the ways that life didn't need to be worse because of this diagnosis.
I think that's really powerful. And for people to hear perhaps permission to look for support in
Mm.
finding that perspective and ways to move past where we find ourselves, where we feel that we are. Even those of us who have pretty intensive training can
Yeah.
struggle with trying to reframe it. So somebody reflecting back to us in that perspective is priceless.
Well, a blind spot is a blind spot. It's impossible for me to see my own blind spots, like by definition. And so I always say, if you're thinking of working with someone, let's say a coach, ask them, do you invest your time and money in coaching? Do you see the power in coaching? And I just think that it's a neat reframe to go from, oh, I couldn't cut it, so I needed to get support, versus people who want to do big things and learn new skills, they get support. And so it's a gift we can give ourselves. I mean, athletes. And I was reading this morning about LeBron James's mindset coach. And I'm like, oh, yeah, LeBron James is a mindset coach because he's exceptional. He's an exception to the rule. And so to feel good about your health with an autoimmune disease, it can feel like we need to be an exception to the rule. So I say, whatever it takes to be exceptional, do it.
I love that. Permission granted, y'all.
I had to present some research on coaching. I did some research for a large organization, a society, looking at the cost savings and the quality of life and the health benefits. And while I was presenting to this group of physicians, someone asked, what's the biggest barrier to health coaching? We see that there's data behind it. We see that it can help in all these areas. What's the biggest barrier? And my answer was, I think people thinking that they shouldn't need help for this. And I get to see in my group, in my membership, I have doctors, I have nurses, pharmacists, therapists, PTs. And when people come in and see that, they're like, oh my gosh, so the experts also get expertise in other ways? And I'm like, yes. And so permission, back to permission granted.
Yes. Thank you for that. I think that is so important to recognize that people performing at a high level, athletes, professionals, people at the top of their field recognize where their energy is best put and
Yeah.
where help helps them get ahead instead of
Mm.
holding themselves back by thinking, I should be able to do this on my own. I know enough. I should do more, right? We get into shoulding on ourselves, and that's completely depleting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. Where, like you just mentioned, where is your energy best spent? I think everybody listening is smart enough and capable to pour through every piece of habit research and book and frame it and package it up in a way and create a club like I created. But is that what you want to be doing? No. You do what you want to be doing. Let me do what I want to be doing. And we all give our energy to what we're good at. And then we're an interdependent culture, right? Our world. Let's use each other in our strengths. I'm going to pay an accountant to do my taxes. I'm going to pay someone to cut this hair. Let people shine.
And so, speaking of energy and the resources we have available, folks who are dealing with autoimmune issues, that's often a problem that they face on the daily, how many spoons they have for the course of
Yeah.
life. And how do you support folks? I imagine quite a lot of this focus in your membership might go to this kind of topic, but how do you help people build that healthy lifestyle like you talked about when you first received this information for yourself, when they're already feeling like they might be maxed out?
Yeah, in order to serve multiple autoimmune diagnoses, it works because there are a couple things that bind a lot of us. And some level of fatigue, whether that's mental, emotional, or physical, as well as a looming uncertainty. Those are the two symptoms I say that bind a lot of us. And so recognizing that energy is something that we want more of, something we need to conserve, back to habits. Habits not only allow us to create more energy. So the things we eat, the way we think, the way we feel, the way we move, that is how our cells respond to us. That is how, down to the little mitochondria that produce the ATP, for all the biology lovers out there, they respond to things we are doing, thinking, feeling. So again, teeing up that every ounce of energy we are able to give into better habits is going to be paid back to us later. And so not only that, but when we are in the grip of a habit, when we are doing something on autopilot that happens to be good for us, we also get to conserve energy, right? Because we're not having to think about it all the time. So it really boils down to deciding what is the first cat. Let's just start with day one. What is the first thing that I know that I want to be doing, that I have a pretty good idea is going to help me feel better? And then we start to learn the skill of setting a goal, going after it, and really tracking the progress and the energy and the rewards that come with it.
Yes. Yes to the rewards. I'm a big fan. I try to remind people as often as I possibly can to celebrate those small victories, all of the progress that we make, because it's so easy to get caught up in the process and forget that we have come along our journey. We have gotten further than where we are. Even if we're not at the finish line, we need to look for these milestones and get in the habit as well of celebrating these little victories along the way.
Absolutely. It's a habit, it's a strategy. And with autoimmunity, our body has been dealing with this likely for years and years beyond even what we think how long it's been dealing with it. And so it is not an overnight thing. Sometimes the cool thing about these mindset shifts and an awareness, those things can feel like overnight. Oh my gosh, I now see it this way, and that can be energizing. But to right the ship on some of these things related to how our body is functioning, it can take time. So if we don't learn how to celebrate sometimes what seems like invisible wins, we're going to leave a lot on the table. So it really is not only a nice to have, it's something that we need to get in the habit of doing. And I don't think I've ever coached someone that it's something that they've been in the habit of doing before it's pointed out how important it is. So it can be uncomfortable, but I always say when we can brag a bit and we bring other people into our celebrations, it's the coolest thing because it helps us reinforce doing that thing again, but also it gives other people permission. Let them brag about something that they're proud of, that they're doing in their life too.
Truly. And I think I've reflected many times over on the show that the work that we are doing, the way that we approach these things differently now, is so important for us to be modeling to younger generations, whether we have our
Yes.
own children or not. I'm a stepmama, and I think that the kids these days, spoken like a midlifer, have so much more vocabulary about their emotions, the way they're feeling, what's going on with them. And we are really breaking very old patterns of putting ourselves last, of pretending everything is fine, of creating the situations where many times issues like autoimmune dysfunction can really develop behind the scenes because we just keep trying to power through and we don't realize how depleted we've become.
I could talk about this for now until the end of time. I'm also not a mother. I am a fierce, fierce aunt is what I call it. And so the ripple effect, when people are, you've heard before, we need to come up with what our why is, right? Why do we keep coming back to this when things feel hard? And a why that all of us can just really get behind is the ripple effect that we cause. So in conventional medicine, someone can go and get stents put in their heart, or they can have surgery on something. That is an intervention that helps one person. When we are able to change how we habitually think, feel, and act, that will affect generations that we never meet. It is the coolest thing. I had one client who was pregnant, and she was trying to eat vegetables more throughout the day. And so we had landed on it because she wanted to eat breakfast vegetables, right? Get up. But that just was not what she did in her family. And so we had fun thinking about the habits that she was able to make while she was pregnant, how that baby being born would never know differently. It would be waking up excited to eat vegetables and just the ripple. And so that was just a really cool thing to see and watch play out, thinking about everybody who's impacted by this work that we get to do.
And I think that is really important too, looking at how with the reframe, we can shift our energy, the perspective, the emotions behind things. And that too helps to build that momentum. And I'm really passionate about resilience. Again, going back to homeostasis, the way our bodies have been designed, we are designed to be resilient, and it is a skill or a capacity that develops through overcoming stress and challenges. Some people are inherently resilient, but many of us get there through these trials and the tribulations.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear your perspective on that, what resilience looks like and how you support people in holding space for that as they're building it back up for themselves.
One thing that's a little bit different about the way I coach, because again of my love of habits, is recognizing that, again, any feeling that we would like to feel can be our goal, right? We can make it a goal to tap into happiness, to tap into joy, to tap into contentment or peace or acceptance or resilience as the goal, right? And so if somebody recognizes that, you know what, I want to build my resilience, we really look at what is happening when the last time you felt resilient. What were you thinking? What was going on? And we can usually find a time, and it's maybe identifying a thought like, you can do this. You've heard things before. And so what we know about habits is that repetition creates new patterns, new neural pathways. So at first people are like, okay, this seems a little odd, but you can go out there with a goal to think, say, act into that you that is resilient. And you can track it like a regular goal. You can find evidence, oh gosh, I felt a little bit more resilient. And having that approach that makes it so tangible that we really use what the science behind what's happening in our thoughts and emotions, pair it with this established known of habits that becomes the new way of being on autopilot. And we find that we're able to really dial up emotions that we want to feel. So resilience, I think, is one that is so juicy and nourishing and useful.
I love that. I really love that perspective because I share as often as I can our capacity for neural rewiring, if you will, overcoming our biology to expect the worst, to remember the worst out of situations. That's powerful training in education. Stress is
Yeah.
a good teacher, and we can move beyond that. And so, by looking for evidence that we are resilient, we see it more easily. We believe it. We build that self confidence. We reclaim that self esteem that feeling ill can take away from us. I think that's really beautiful. I love that approach to it.
Yeah, an example that happened last month when we're setting up the month, and I say we because I think something my clients love about me is I'm doing this work with them, right? I'm always doing exactly what I'm offering. And so the start of the month, I'll say, what do we want to feel more of this month? Let's drop a pebble into our awareness and say, what do we want to feel more of? And I had picked patience. I noticed I was feeling impatient with things happening. I was feeling rushed when I was walking around places. And so I'm like, okay, what would it look like to practice patience as a habit? And so I had another club member who was with me. She was like, mine is patience too. So it was fun to share the different things. But I heat up this corn bag. I don't know if other people call it different things, but at night I sleep with it. It's heavy and warm, and it's 2.5 minutes in the microwave. And I notice I put it in, and then I'm, okay, let's get this dish over here. Let's do this. Let's prep the coffee. And I thought, I want my body to practice feeling patient and see the next time that I'm in a situation where I could use patience, I've brought my body there to be patient, to tell myself I have time. So all month, I stood at that microwave for 2.5 minutes. And I told myself, this is patience. This is patience. And you start to see, oh my gosh, this adds up. It ripples out. And similarly, the person who was practicing patience with me, she found different ways. She's like, I got in the longest line at the grocery store and I waited. And I'm like, yes, it feels like, wow, I'm choosing this and I feel patient. So it's hopefully people are hearing, okay, it could be tangible. We don't just have to hope to believe new things and feel different things. It really can be a process that we take some ownership over.
Yes, I love that. That's such a terrific example and growing edge, I think, for all of us, because in this Western lifestyle and approach, we're supposed to be productive. We're supposed to be producing. We're supposed to be doing something with every available moment. So if we're stuck in line at the grocery store, the phone comes out, we're scrolling, maybe checking the inbox or the messages or the
Right.
social media insert distraction here. Right. And so that invitation to simply be okay, being patient, not, oh, I've got 2.5 minutes. I should fill the dishwasher. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
And how many of us say, oh, I'm just not patient? It's like, wait, this is not a character flaw. It's not a character trait. We have a habit of not being patient. And like when we remove ourselves from whatever the thing we're labeling ourselves, and we see it as a habit that we've just been feeding our entire lives, things can change. And you mentioned the productivity thing, but one of the 6 areas that I coach and teach and live on of these habits is rest and relaxation, which really, of course, speaks to your listeners of I love the habit approach because it's not, okay, just stress less, Susie, just stop stressing. It's actually, oh, how do I build in more moments of safety, of rest, of relaxation? How do I make those more habitual? And one by one, moment by moment, it doesn't need to be going off to a spa. It can be these micro moments where we really get to rest throughout the day, and that becomes our goal. The goal can actually be to take something away or to do something that feels restful again, because we can train ourselves to feel more rested by doing more restful things.
I love that invitation. So I hope people start to just be aware. I find that the awareness, as you already mentioned, sometimes there's a light bulb moment. It's the rare, it's the unicorn. We love when that happens.
Yeah.
And we usually have to keep coming back to it. So that's a beautiful kind of invitation to be more present to it and choosing the way that we want to be. And looking at that mindset, the way that our feelings and emotions can color things, how do you see that impacting yourself, the people that you're working with in terms of their energy, their physical capacity? Like, where do you see the relationship there?
You know, our if thoughts are the language of our brain, which they are, emotions are the language of our body. So, our cells and our organs and our systems, they are responding to how we're feeling. And we could be doing something, telling ourselves, this is relaxing. But if our body isn't relaxed, it doesn't know what you're saying. It knows what you're feeling. And there's a very real chemical fingerprint to the different emotions. So this is so oversimplifying it, but I think it's just a useful thought to adopt if it seems to make sense and help you with the why. But if it feels good, right? If an emotion feels neutral or good or not inflammatory, it's likely not inflammatory. The emotions that feel inflammatory, like frustrated or resistance or beating yourself up, guilt, shame, those are the things that our bodies are also responding to. And so there is a habit expert, his name's BJ Fogg, and he's done 20 years of research. He wrote Tiny Habits. I don't know if that's one that you have as well. But yeah, I see the thumbs up. But he said if he could boil down all of his work into 3 words, it's that emotions create habit. And so paying attention to how we are feeling while we are doing these various things as we're going about our day can be just such a key to making changes that in a way that feels good and is not, again, beating ourselves up for things. And so, yeah, learning how to look at our thoughts and learning how to name and identify our emotions are 2 skills that are not always comfortable, but so usable when it comes to learning to trust yourself. Like, am I going to go this way? Am I going to do that? What's next for me? Really looking at our emotions is huge.
Emotions create habits. That is a keeper, especially from somebody, as you say, with the breadth of work and research that he has put together. I think that's so powerful.
And it makes sense. People are like, oh, is it 21 days to a habit? Is it
Yeah.
not? And it's not. It's usually tied to the emotional charge behind it. That's why it can take different amounts of time. And so, yeah, getting good at practicing getting your body into a better emotional place again will not only feel better while you're doing it, but the real kicker is the long-term benefits as that starts to compound like a snowball.
Yes. The benefits in terms of having those beneficial habits. I
Yeah.
think the benefit of having that awareness, again, that's a muscle that we need to develop because this world that we are in is so demanding and it gets so loud
Yeah.
that it really takes a little practice to become aware of those signs that are coming through so we can tune into that inner compass, I like to call it, and then be more intentional.
I think a really good example that, listeners, this may help with is realizing that let's take, because we're talking about autoimmune disease, that's something we could have 2 people with multiple sclerosis, let's say, because that's mine. We could have 2 people that it's the exact same diagnosis with the exact same symptoms, with the exact same impact of the diagnosis. But you look over here, and one person may feel at peace or at ease or accepting or happy, healthy. The other person could feel frustrated, resistance. They could feel overwhelming, like things aren't right or that something has gone wrong. And again, there's no right or wrong, but recognizing we do get to choose which of those people we want to be with that diagnosis. And it's not always easy, but it's building this belief system that you know what, maybe I can have some control of this. I can. Sometimes it's helpful to recognize accepting this now doesn't mean I'm saying it's okay, and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to do things to try to make it better, but acceptance feels a whole lot better than resistance.
Definitely. And again, it's okay if it takes some practice. It's okay if it's not something that comes easily the first time we
Yeah.
aim to be accepting or to feel resilient, right? To give
You're
us
right.
that.
Yeah, it starts with moments. It starts with just the moment that you find the line of thinking that helps you dip into that. But then you get back out in real life and you make it frustrated again. But, oh, okay, then we redirect. And so we just are able to string together more and more of these moments into what feels like maybe a new normal over time.
And I think too, breaking it down into these moments and recognizing the milestones and the process, when we get there, it can be easier to cheer ourselves on, to appreciate the way that we're showing up, because I think that's so important. And I think as you suggested or as you shared when you first received this diagnosis, there was a lot, I believe, initially. What do I need to do? Who do I need to be? What do I need to change? All of my habits. I need to be the picture of health in order to conquer this diagnosis, perhaps. And that can really lead to overwhelm. And I see that bringing people to a complete standstill instead of being able to move through that. A lot of times that freezes people in their tracks. And so, how do you suggest people, if they're feeling that overwhelm or feeling stuck, Do you have some suggestions there?
I have such a concrete suggestion because it is the number one emotion that people finally say, I've had enough and I need to try something different, is overwhelm. Overwhelm, confusion. And so my answer is, if we're willing to share, but we're going to talk through it, but a quiz that is pulling from this research to help you identify what is your best place to start. Because as counterintuitive as it is, we feel like, oh my God, I need to do it all. No, we need to do one thing to start. We need to worry about one thing. And so what the quiz does is it helps you determine what area. Is it food? Is it movement? Is it mindset? There's 6 areas in total that if I start here and create a new habit in this area that is good for my body, that is good for my brain, if I start to learn these skills for how to change habits, you get to bring that skill to habit 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the ones you'll create in the future. But call me overwhelmed. You only have to start with one. That is what works. That is what helps, is that trusting that we say trust in the tiny all the time. Trust that this tiny first step is the right one for you.
I really love that. And thank you for making that available. We'll have a link in the show notes to Amy's quiz to identify your number one habit for feeling and functioning better. Because as those of us who have geeked out on habits know, when you try to tackle them all at the same time, that is the recipe for overwhelm. So whether it's a diagnosis that brings you to recognize there are things in your life you need to change, or if it's the new year or the beginning of a quarter or wherever you find yourself, where suddenly that to-do list is like, and it all has to be done today. Instead of letting that freeze us where we are, we can come back to the one thing. The One Thing, another great book.
Yes. And we back to emotions create habit. If you wake up and you have a plan for your day related to improving your health or improving how you feel, if you look at that plan or you think about that plan and you feel dread or how am I going to do this? That is a recipe for not following through. Imagine one thing on that list, waking up and being like, I got this. Wait, you're saying I only need to worry about this one thing? I got this. That confidence, that voice in your head that's actually called self-efficacy telling you, I've got this, is what we're talking about where emotions create habit. You're going to show up for that habit in such a different way. And then you're going to be like, what's my next one?
And before we go today, because we've covered a lot of ground, thank you for following along with me. I feel like we could probably do a whole series of conversations and
Girl, I
still
know.
not repeat ourselves. Is there something that you would also love for people to be aware of that we just didn't reach into yet in the conversation?
I think that recognizing that we have a decision to make of like kind of getting started and not just, oh, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that, but really stepping into your power to decide I'm going to figure this out. And I say this meaning whatever feels hard. Is it not walking around stressed all the time? Is it not feeling like your happiness is at the mercy of a diagnosis or another person or a situation? Really deciding what is something you want and committing to make a decision to stick with it and get started in a way until you feel like you've made progress on that and start to get some of those skills. So I say start today, but I have a line in the sand, right? I remember the day that I was like, I'm going to take on this new approach, right? I'm going to be different than other people. I'm going to be proud to be different, that I am putting my health and be the only person I know with a coach. That was one. There was a couple of years where people would go, how are you so well adjusted? And I would say, oh, I just am. And I'm like, I'm part of the problem. I wasn't telling people, oh, I have a coach and now I'm going back to school for coaching and all this. So my line in the sand was that. But for someone, it may be finally doing the thing that has been uncomfortable, you've been scared to do. Something that you can look back and say, you know what, there was a before and there was an after. And really commit to whatever that thing is that you want.
And then developing that self-efficacy, that confidence and esteem that we have, we just let life drain out of us because it's a demanding life that we are all navigating right now. And I love your words to trust the tiny.
Mm.
So many times we think it's a big problem. I need a big solution. and then I'm going to get ready to execute the plan. And so being
Yeah.
clear, drawing that line in the sand, whatever that is, I think it's so helpful too for people showing up from wherever they are and whatever is hard in their lives to see some folks being authentic and transparent in a way that is healthy for them
Yeah.
and sharing their journey and saying, yeah, I was stuck or I felt overwhelmed or I wanted to give up. I can't tell you how many times. And here I am today. And I'm proud of myself for doing this thing.
Yeah.
And right. And supporting each other. So thanks. I
Oh,
love the having the group to gather. I think that there's so much wisdom too that comes out of that shared
yeah.
experience as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Some people hear the word group and they think of a free Facebook group where people dump terrible advice and try this and this worked for me, but a really supportive group of people going after similar things and seeing that you're not alone, feeling that you're not alone. Emotions create habit, feeling that can really make such a difference. And it's kind of neat because sometimes you're like, I don't even know what I'd really ask for coaching on today, but you glean so much from seeing others like us find some of these blind spots and work through it. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I absolutely find that to be the case every single time. Whenever I show up to a program that I'm participating in, mastermind or mentorship, the questions that other people are answering so often are something that was in my blind spot, or there's a group theme that by the end of the conversation becomes apparent. Oh,
Yeah.
we're all in the soup together.
Yes, and what's normal out in the world is a whole lot of busy, a whole lot of overwhelmed, a whole lot of, oh, this is life. Get in the soup of some rooms where that's not the conversation, where it is a little bit different and it's contagious. Just like chaos is contagious, so is calm. And so again, back to emotions create habit. If we have a place to dip into that we feel calm, we feel inspired, we feel hopeful, that will change the game when it comes to trying to follow through on anything that we want to follow through on.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I don't think I could come up with anything better to wrap things up. So thank you for that, for sharing all of your wisdom. Amy's website is amybeheimercoaching.com. There's a link on your website for that quiz that we were
There
talking about.
is.
Folks
There
can
is. Yeah.
explore that there.
Yeah.
And the podcast, Autoimmune Health Secrets. Whether or not you have a diagnosis, I know that there are secrets for everybody's health and resilience there in the show. So I hope you will check out Amy's podcast. And I want to thank you again for joining me. This is just so many gold nuggets in this conversation. Thank you.
Thanks for being such an amazing host.
Thanks for listening. You'll find all the resources we discussed today online at happifiedlife.com, along with links to subscribe to Happified on your favorite player and a handy search tool so you can search all of our previous episodes. Help us grow by leaving a quick review and share this episode with a friend. Until next time, keep on shining.